Hello everyone, welcome back to the TheGeekBlend. I'm Jeff, and today we're going to be reviewing Black Adam, but first I want to warn you all that if you have not seen the film, please click away now, because I'm going to be giving away spoilers for the film, and the big reveal at the very end of the film. So if you don't want any spoilers, you want to watch this without being spoiled, you definitely want to click away, go watch Black Adam, come back, and then watch this video. Alright, let's go ahead and get into the review. So going into Black Adam, I didn't have a lot of hopes. I think my hopes were very low. Like, my expectations were low. I wasn't going in thinking, oh, this is going to be the best superhero film of all time. I was thinking, this is probably going to be a mediocre mess. And I was correct. I'm not going to go through the plot like one by one and explain exactly everything I have wrong with the film. I'm just going to go over my general thoughts of it. First of all, I will be making a DC films and DC Universe future video soon where I talk about what I think they're going to be doing with James Gunn and the other gentleman in charge of DC at Warner Bros. Discovery, and what they might be doing going forward, what they should do going forward, and what they could do going forward. So keep an eye out for that. That will also tie into this video. So The Rock was cast as Black Adam, I think all the way back in 2016, 2017. Been working on this project for a long time. Really been hyping it up. You know, the hierarchy of the DCEU is about to change. And then it doesn't make very much money at the box office. And people online are making excuses for it, like, well, Iron Man didn't do very well. Yes, Iron Man was also towards that infancy of superhero films. It wasn't in this new era where it's superhero films over and over and over. It was, back then. It's a much different time now than it was then. But I do think people are getting a little bit confused with DC movies, because you have some DC movies that are in the universe, some are not, some look like they are, and then some absolutely are not, like the Batman with Robert Pattinson. It's completely on its own universe. That is the Reevesverse, as they call it. But getting back to this, so The Rock, let's talk about him really quickly before we get into the review and what I thought of him as Black Adam. The Rock is a decent actor. I will say a lot of times when I go see The Rock in a movie, I'm just watching The Rock in a movie. There's been some movies here and there where he's done better than others. I would say the Jumanji movies, he's more comedic and trying to be something different. He's not as good as the other characters around him, like Kevin Hart and Karen Gillan and Jack Black. They're much better than he is in the comedic roles, of course. But he's still better in that movie than I think he's been in a lot of stuff. But like the Fast and the Furious movies, a lot of the other stuff he's done, the action stuff he's done, he's very similar. And he plays the same character. He almost plays himself all the time. I will say, when I finished this movie, I thought about it, and not his part in the Mummy movies, but the actual Scorpion King movie he did, I thought that was better than this. I haven't watched it. I went back and started watching it again. Haven't watched it all the way. Been watching it online. And it is definitely better than this. I think he gives a better performance in that movie than he does in this movie. But it's still not very different. When he does something, it's very similar. It's like going to the theater, watching The Rock, and not the character he is. So I could never really kind of disconnect from that, because he's not like one of the great actors of our time where you go in and you know this person, but you see them as that character all the time. Even if it's the next movie, you see them as that character. Let's do Tom Cruise for an example. So if you go into Tom Cruise movie like Mission Impossible, you see him as Ethan Hunt. You go into Top Gun, you see him as Maverick. You go into Jack Reacher, you see him as Jack Reacher. You feel like he's a different character. The Rock, you just see him. He might be played flatter or a little bit more charismatic than another character. Like this one, he's definitely more flat and more monotone and just playing that kind of, I'm The Rock, I'm a tough guy kind of role. He wasn't really playing a hero. He didn't have an accent at all, which was kind of jarring, because in the beginning of the movie, if you get into the film, so this is set in the fictional city of Kahndaq, and it's in the Middle East, and all of the characters in the beginning, back when you do the flashbacks, he's even speaking another language. They all have accents. He has a very slight accent. He comes back 5,000 years later. He's awoken. And he came from that world back then where they used that language. He had a slight accent. Everybody had an accent. He has no accent. He's not speaking in the language. He's speaking English, and he has an American accent. It's very jarring, actually. The people I watched it with kind of pointed it out a couple of times, saying, hey, why doesn't he have an accent like they do? I don't know. I don't understand why they didn't give him hair, didn't give him the ears like in the comic books either. They just didn't make him look different. If they would have made him look a little bit different and not like The Rock, like I've seen some fan art and sketches out there, it might have been a little bit better, and I might have separated myself from seeing The Rock on screen and Black Adam. Now, he does a pretty decent job playing this kind of a character who's, very stoic, and, he's not a hero. He's an anti-hero, almost a villain. In the comics, a lot of times he's a villain. He's not in the comics a lot. He hasn't had a lot of glaring hey, this is Black Adam stuff, but he does have a little bit. He's mostly a villain, anti-hero sometimes, but most of the time he actually is a villain. But he does a good job of making him kind of an anti-hero. It's a little bit too much, to be honest with you. I think he should have just said screw everybody and done exactly what he wanted and not given a shit about anybody, instead of actually kind of end up caring about this woman and her son who kind of gets involved in this whole thing. Let's get into the quick plot. So he awakes 5,000 years later. There is a crown. It's called the Crown of Sabbac. And if you know DC Comics, Sabbac is a character from the comics. His first appearance was 1943 in Captain Marvel. He's a villain and an enemy of Captain Marvel and the Marvel family. He has demonic superpowers. When he says his name, he gets the powers of hell. And he's given the strength of all these different demons. He is not in the movie very much. You see him at the very, very, very end. The king in the flashback 5,000 years ago is trying to use this. You see this child who ends up being Teth Adam's son, who's the warrior. And Teth Adam is injured. You find this out at the end, because it makes you think that the child in the beginning is the champion that has been resurrected. They all think it's this champion. There's a statue of him in the middle of this city, and everybody thinks it's him, but you kind of go back. If you know the story of Black Adam, you know it wasn't him. His son was the champion. Then he took the power. I believe he actually took the power and killed his son. He was actually the uncle, I believe, in the comics. And he killed his nephew to get the powers because he wanted the powers to extract revenge against his people who were enslaved by this king. But in this version, he's the dad. The son gets the power. We see in a flashback, Teth Adam is actually injured, and to save his life, he gives his dad, the child gives his dad the power of Shazam, and he becomes Black Adam. And right after that happens, his son dies. So the son was originally the hero, but Black Adam took the powers, and he's the one who is resurrected. He actually was used the powers, but not for good. And all the Shazam sorcerers and magicians encased him in a tomb for 5,000 years, and he was awoken because the character Adriana Tomaz, played by Sarah, I can't pronounce her last name. I think it's Sarah Sahi. She has a necklace that was given to her by her grandmother, and it opens his tomb. That's how he's released. He wreaks havoc. The Justice Society comes in with Dr. Fate, Atom Smasher, Cyclone, and Hawkman. And they come in and they try to shut him down, and he's killing people. They're not cool with that because they're the good guys, unquote. They're the good guy team. They don't like killing people. So they get mad at him. They try to fight him, and they can't beat him. He ends up joining forces with them to stop this guy. Blah. It's a very, very generic plot. Let's also talk really quickly about the Justice Society. I think Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate is the best part of this movie. Atom Smasher didn't even need to be in it. Cyclone was literally a waste of time. Hawkman, Carter Hall was in this, although we do not know if it's Carter Hall as portrayed in DC Comics, where he's the resurrected prince, and when he dies, he resurrects all the time in a different, I think he resurrects in a different body. But he's played by Aldous Hodge, and I think he does a really good job with his character. He's a little bit too, hey, you shouldn't be killing, I'm a superhero, I'm a good guy, blah, blah, a little bit too much. But he does a good job in the role of Hawkman. And if they do something down the road with more of these characters, and he comes back, I want to know if it's the Carter Hall we know from the comics, who is basically the resurrected prince. I want to know if that's which Hawkman he's playing. That would be great to know. But again, Atom Smasher, which, by the way, the character's mask, it was the Deadpool mask, but blue. It was literally a Deadpool. He wasn't funny like Deadpool. He was just stupid. Of course, he was a white male and he had to be a moron. You know, like in movies nowadays, he was just a white male idiot character. It was his first day on the job with the Justice Society, and they bring him to this, which was weird. Most of the actors were decent, but like I said, Pierce Brosnan is Dr. Fate, which, by the way, they kill off at the end of this movie, which is really stupid, to introduce Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate, and does such a phenomenal job in this role. Let's kill him off. He was very charismatic. He was always the one to kind of like bring reason into the conversation about things like, hey, let's kind of give him, let's see what happens, because he can see the future. He sees fate, but it continues to change. The girl who played Cyclone, Quintessa Swindell, she was okay, but she was literally a waste of time. Don't even need to be in here at all. One thing I want to talk about really quickly. This is probably a little bit of a, I guess it's not, because she's in the movie quite a bit. Amanda Waller is in this movie, and it seems like that they're trying to use her as the Nick Fury. So she's the head of the JSA. So Viola Davis, who played Amanda Waller in the Suicide Squad and Suicide Squad, is in this as kind of like the leader. And that doesn't really roll well with me, because Amanda Waller is not that kind of character in the comics. We know that. She wasn't that kind of character in this Suicide Squad that David Ayer did. You know, not the David Ayer cut we haven't seen yet, but what we've seen of her, she's not a good person. That's how she is in the comics. That's how she's always portrayed in the comics. This was kind of weird. There's another scene with her and another character in Black Adam at the end, and we'll get into that at the end of this, but again, it's just really weird. Also, the technology that they use, all these futuristic tech, like jets, and this other company that uses, I can't remember the name of that company that uses the technology in this movie that's against everybody, Intergang. They have all this, Internium is this material that hurts Black Adam. They use it to power all their like hover cycles and their ships and stuff. And I'm like, this stuff is super advanced. Where was all this tech before in this universe? Because as it's confirmed in the end, this is part of the DCEU with the Justice League and Batfleck and Henry Cavill Superman, all those characters. It's confirmed that that's the same world. But anyway, this is a very, very generic story. It's kind of a coming of age, it's another fish out of water story that we get to see in all these movies. Original Wonder Woman did it really, really well. There's been a ton of other movies that have done it well, and other movies not so much, where they're out of time, out of place, and they're like, oh, what does this do? How do I do this? And they're learning, and they learn a little bit more. And of course, this kid, that's the son of the main character in this, he's like, you got to have a catchphrase. And of course, I think it ends up being telling the man in black sent you, and it's really stupid. It's really stupid. The visuals are pretty decent in it, by the way. The score is not great in it. The movie uses music instead of a score. Like when he's taking out all these, when he first gets resurrected, he's taking out all these like army guys, intergang people, like helicopters, all kinds of stuff. And Paint It Black is playing as he's killing like hundreds of people. And it's just really weird. It doesn't fit at all. I saw that scene on Twitter. I had seen a lot of scenes out of context before I watched this. And there was a lot of scenes like that. That one was especially jarring. It just would have fit with a more like really heavy, aggressive, like drums and maybe like dark, like deep guitar, like score to it instead of just some song, which they probably had to get a license for. I'm not sure who did the score on this movie, but it just really, there wasn't much of one. IMDb doesn't even have a composer on here, but I'm not sure if they do anyway. Not sure if I'm looking in the right place, but anyway, there is some of a score in the background a little bit, and it's just kind of generic. They end up capturing Black Adam after they decide that he has to stop, and if he says Shazam, they're trying to get him to say Shazam, so he'll go back to his human form, and they take him to this underwater place in the Arctic and put him in this, I guess, this suspended animation. And there's tons and tons of other characters around him in suspended animation that we don't see, of course. We don't get any teases. We don't get any Easter eggs or nothing. It's just, there's a bunch of heroes or villains in suspended animation. Okay, cool. That's great. And the bad guy, who's literally just some bad guy. Ishmael is who he is the character. He's the only living ancestor of the king that enslaved Teth Adam's people in the beginning. He's the only one left. So he gets the crown of Sabak and becomes Sabak. And they're like, oh no, we can't. And they try to fight him. Like just JSA tries to fight him. Dr. Fate, Hawkman, Cyclone, Atom Smasher, they all go in to fight him, and they can't do anything. He's too strong to do anything. So of course they need Black Adam. So Dr. Fate awakens Black Adam, gets him out of that suspended animation tank he's in, and then he has to escape out of this place and swim all the way up to the surface, which is probably 500 feet to the surface, maybe, or less. Maybe it's a couple hundred feet. I'm not sure. It's a pretty decent ways away to swim to the surface for somebody who was raised in the desert, by the way, who probably doesn't know how to fucking swim, but yet he swims through the Arctic water and isn't dead or doesn't have hypothermia when he comes out at the top and he says Shazam. All right. I was wondering if they're going to let him say Shazam underwater. I'd be like, wait a minute, because Shazam, or Billy Batson tried to say Shazam underwater in the Shazam movie, and he couldn't. So I was wondering if they were actually going to use that and kind of go against what they've already set up. Also, I will talk really quickly about that. The fact that they didn't introduce Black Adam or his story being introduced in Shazam or him being in Fury of the Gods or the next Shazam movie is kind of a waste. But I do think that the reason they might not have done that is because they wanted to see how well Black Adam did and performed at the box office. Now, I know I've been all over the place with this review, but it's very much a forgettable movie. You'll watch it, you'll remember a lot of stuff about it, but you will forget it. It's very much forgettable. I had to look up a lot of the characters' names, and I had to look up some of the fictional city that he's part of. Kondak that he's part. I had to literally look that stuff up. And I don't even give a shit about the kid character. I'm not even going to say his name because who gives a shit. But it's just really generic. It's not bad. It's not terrible though. That's the thing. It's not a terrible movie. It's just generic and underwhelming. There's some cool action sequences, yes. But superhero movies always don't have to be about massive action sequences. We don't have to do that all the time. It can be something different. We can have lower budget stuff. But of course, I'm guessing with this character, you just can't really do that on his first outing. With a character that flies and can basically vaporize people with all the lightning that comes out of him, you really can't do that. I know. I understand. But still, I think people might be getting a little bit fatigued on this kind of stuff. Some of the Marvel movies lately have not done as well as of late. And I think people are getting fatigued on these movies, especially the ones that are coming out that are not as good, and they're not giving you a good story. They're really not doing a good job of keeping you captivated or connecting the dots and keeping the universe connected, which is one of the biggest problems right now with DC, is they just can't get their shit together to keep everything connected. And yes, I know people do not like what Zack Snyder did. That's fine. I did. I think he should be brought back to continue his Snyderverse, let him finish Justice League 2 and 3, connect all this stuff together, and then let everybody come in and just kind of roll with it. But maybe put Deborah Snyder in charge of DC instead of James Gunn, because I just don't think James Gunn is going to do a good job. I mean, look at fucking Peacemaker was terrible. The Suicide Squad was not great. I watched it again after doing a review, and I went down on went farther down on my score. It's just not a good movie. I don't think that they're going to do a good job with this. I hope that they'll be looking at bringing in filmmakers to do a good job with these characters instead of having him tell you what you should do with these characters. And I hope we don't ever see Peacemaker again on screen, because that was just an abomination. Anyway, Black Adam, very generic, very forgettable. It's The Rock being stoic, just being The Rock. He's not really being another character. He doesn't come back 5,000 years. It's 5,000 years later. He's resurrected in modern times. He doesn't have an accent. He's not speaking the language of his people like he was when he was put in that prison, which makes no fucking sense. So there's a lot of stuff in this movie doesn't make sense. A lot of stuff they kind of forget about. And it's just very okay. It's very meh. And I'm giving it a low score, not because it's bad, just because it's meh. We will get to the score later, But let's get into the end credit scene, shall we? Let's go ahead and talk about that. So I'm going to spoil this end credit scene. I'm going to spoil it. Okay, so the end scene is with Black Adam and Amanda Waller on some kind of drone thing that she's talking to him through. And Henry Cavill is in this scene as well, Superman. So let's begin with the scene where she's talking to him a little bit about something. I forget, she says somebody, she'll get people to stop him if he steps one toe out of line or something like that. And he's like, there's no one on this earth that can stop me. And she's like, I can call into a few favors people who aren't from this earth that can stop you. And he said, bring them all or send them all or something like that. So he blows up the drone and it's all in smoke. And immediately Superman is there. He's there. He walks through the smoke. Henry Cavill Superman. He's got the Man of Steel suit. It's a little bit brighter colored. And of course, they decided to screw that up and play the John Williams Superman theme for Henry Cavill's Superman, which theme was done by Hans Zimmer. Now, I have nothing against John Williams' theme for Superman. That is the theme, but it is for Christopher Reeves. Whether you like those movies or not, that theme is for Christopher Reeves. It was not written for someone else. To me, it kind of pisses on that legacy of his version of Superman when you use his theme for someone else. You be respectful and use the Hans Zimmer Man of Steel theme, which is very epic and it fits Cavill's Superman. Use that instead. But anyway, so Superman comes through the smoke and he says, it's been a while since someone made this planet so nervous. Blah, 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 and something like that. I'm thinking, oh yeah? Didn't fucking Steppenwolf and Darkseid do that? That probably just happened less than a year ago or a year or two before this? A while might be, stretching it, but we don't know where this fits in the timeline with Justice League, because Justice League existed, even if they use the Whedon cut, it's still canon, and Steppenwolf was still trying to take over the universe. Zod was here. I mean, come on, Superman, use your brain. There were people here that made you nervous before, or made this planet nervous. Anyway, he says, Black Adam, we need to talk, and that's it. Now, we all know this cameo had been in the works for quite a long time. And The Rock got it done. It was shot, I believe, in August or September, because they had to wait until everybody was out who was against bringing Cavill in. I mean, this was a headless cameo, from what I understand from people who saw actual test screenings before, who have come out and said, after this movie's been released, like, we can talk about it, it was a headless cameo. They finally got him in. Got him in the suit, which is fucking fantastic. He's left The Witcher. He's going to be doing more Superman. We don't know how much because we don't know what's happening behind the scenes with DC, with James Gunn, and with David Zaslav at Warner Bros. Discovery. Anyway, it was really great to see him back. Unfortunately, without the Hans Zimmer theme, it was harder for me to get excited about it, even though it was cool to see Cavill back in a suit, because he deserves to be back in the suit. But again, weird that Amanda Waller's running everything and she's the one calling Superman in. It just doesn't fit Amanda Waller, and I think they're trying to set her up as the Nick Fury of the DC universe, and I don't think so. That's not going to work. Try somebody else. Pull somebody else out of DC Comics, because Amanda Waller doesn't work. She's the one that runs Task Force X. She's the one that runs, Suicide Squad. She's not a good person. She doesn't be running these kind of teams. So anyway, that's my review of Black Adam. I was all over the place with the review, I know, but, that's just how it is when you haven't seen the movie for about a week, and it's only been a week or less since I've seen it, and I had to look up some stuff because it's so forgettable. So I'm going to give Black Adam a 5 out of 10. It wasn't bad, it was generic, had a lot of holes, and a lot of things I didn't like, and The Rock's performance was just very bland and stoic, and he's just playing The Rock again. Definitely, Pierce Brosnan and Aldous Hodge as Hawkman and Dr. Fate are the standouts in this movie for me. I really hope going forward they use Carter Hall as the Carter Hall that's in DC Comics if they bring him back. I did like him in the role, so we'll see how that goes moving forward. But him and Pierce Brosnan were the standouts, of course, in this movie. A slight edge to Pierce Brosnan because he was just fantastic in this role. It just fit him really well, and sucks they killed him off. But Aldous Hodge was fantastic as well. A lot of stuff I've seen him in, he's been really good. But yeah, hopefully moving forward, they'll bring him back and do something better with his character. Because they didn't give him a lot to do, unfortunately. So maybe they'll set up some JSA stuff, Justice League stuff. Maybe they'll kind of come together. We'll see. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff they can do. But the fact this movie didn't make a lot of money doesn't say a lot for the future of Black Adam or these characters at all. So we'll see what happens down the road. We'll see how well Shazam! Fury of the Gods does. And if they think that they're going to continue with this. Because to be honest with you, if this doesn't do well, Shazam doesn't do well, they either need to bring Snyder back for Justice League 2 and 3 and then go off of that, or they need to completely reboot the entire thing. Because you're bringing in these characters who are connected with other movies, and you're not connecting these movies, and it's just all out of whack and makes no sense, and people are going to get confused. So you got to do something to bring it all together. So hopefully James Gunn and DC and Warner Bros. Discovery and David Zaslav will bring it all together and make something great. Thank you guys for watching the Black Adam review here on the Geek Blend. I very much appreciate it. Leave a comment down below and let me know, what did you think of Black Adam? What did you think of the cameo by Henry Cavill? Did you think it was cool sitting back in a suit? Were you disappointed they didn't use the Hans Zimmer theme? What did you think of the characters in the movie? Did you think it was good? Did you think it was generic? What did you guys think? Just let me know down below. I would love to hear your thoughts, as always. Much, much appreciated. Leave a like on the video. It really does help us out. It really, really does. Also, if you're new to the channel and you like what you see, and you want to see some more, hit that subscribe button for more. Also, hit the bell for notifications, even if you're not a new subscriber and you don't have the bell on. That way you can be updated when I do release videos finally. And I know I'm on a very weird schedule right now. Holidays are around. As I was kind of getting back into this, the holidays are here, so it's kind of hard to do what I want to do. And I know I'm not on camera anymore or as much anymore, but I will talk about that in the live stream down the road coming up. Hopefully I'll get one in before Christmas. That's the goal. So keep an eye on the channel. All my social media links, all the other stuff's down below. I'm most active on Twitter. I need to get more active on my Discord as well. Discord links down there below as well too. Join the Discord. Create more conversations. Make that community more active. Once we get the channel going back in full swing again, we'll try to get that more active. But again, I'm always most active on Twitter. You'll see when I'm going live. You'll see when I'm posting a video. Always on Twitter. And you can see my stupid thoughts over there too. So check it out. Hope you guys are doing really well. Thank you all for being supportive of the last video that I did here on the channel for the Halloween Ends review. It was a massive hit. I think it's almost over 600 views right now. I think it had the most comments on any video I've done. Thank you all very much for the success of that video. I very much appreciate it. Thank you guys very much. I will see you guys in the next video. Remember, this is the Geek Blend, and if you geek about it, we speak about it. I will see you guys next time. Have a great rest of your week. Take care.